Brad's now working at a hardware store, still paying off the lawyer who couldn't keep him from getting charged with theft. He asked me for a job last month, said he'd work for apprentice wages, that he'd learned his lesson. I told him I'd already hired Lisa, who was turning out to be naturally gifted with pipe fitting. She'd never tried to sabotage anyone, never stolen anything, never made fake reviews. Funny how that works out. My business is booming. Turns out when you focus on actually doing good work instead of tearing others down, customers notice. Who would have thought? The hardware store manager called me 2 weeks after the reunion. Your cousin's been asking a lot of questions about commercial accounts again, he said. Thought you should know. I thanked him and hung up, wondering when Brad would finally give up. The theft charges had stuck. Community service and restitution, nothing that would land him in jail, but enough to tank any chance at a contractor's license for years. Yet here he was, still circling my business like a shark that couldn't admit the ocean had moved on. Lisa was working out better than I'd hoped. She had steady hands and actually listened when I explained why we did things certain ways. Marcus had started training her on the basics while I handled the commercial jobs. Devin's wife had their baby, and I gave him 2 weeks paid leave even though we were swamped. That's when I noticed my supplier's delivery truck driving past our job site without stopping. The driver called me an hour later, confused. Someone called and canceled your order, said you were switching suppliers. I hadn't canceled anything. The order was for a restaurant renovation starting Monday. $3,000 worth of materials I needed on site. I called the supplier's office, and they played me the voicemail. The voice was muffled, but the callback number was Brad's old work cell. He'd kept it active apparently. I had to drive 2 hours to another supplier to get the materials, paying rush fees that ate into my profit margin. Lisa helped me load everything while Marcus handled our regular service calls. Why would someone do that? She asked, genuinely puzzled. I explained Brad's history while we drove back. Her face darkened. He's the one who told my mom you'd probably go under within a year. Said I was making a mistake working for you. That was news to me, but not surprising. The next morning, I found Marcus at a job site looking frustrated. The property manager had called him directly, saying I'd sent a message about Marcus taking over the contract. She showed me the email, Marcus said. Had your company logo and everything. The email address was one letter off from mine. Easy to miss if you weren't looking carefully. The message praised Marcus's work and suggested he was ready to handle accounts independently, implying I was planning to let him go. I spent an hour on the phone with the property manager, explaining the situation. She believed me eventually, but the seed of doubt was there. Maybe you should look into better email security, she suggested, as if I hadn't already changed passwords and enabled two-factor authentication on everything. But Brad wasn't hacking accounts. He was creating fake ones, exploiting the trust I'd built with clients. Devin came back from leave to find his van's registration had expired, except it hadn't. Someone had reported it stolen, then canceled the report, but not before the DMV flagged it. Took 3 trips to the courthouse to sort out, each one during business hours when he should have been working. I can't keep missing work for this stuff, he told me, stress evident in his voice. My wife's already worried about the steady income. I gave him a raise on the spot, hoping it would help, but I could see him checking job listings on his lunch break. Amy called me that weekend. Brad's been reaching out to extended family, she said. Cousins from Dad's side who don't know the whole story. He's painting himself as the victim, saying you stole Tony's business and ruined his chances. She forwarded me screenshots from a family group chat I wasn't part of. Brad's version had me scheming from the beginning, manipulating Tony in his retirement, using family connections to block Brad's legitimate business attempts. Several cousins I hadn't seen in years were sympathizing with him. I decided to focus on what I could control, the work. Landed a contract with a medical office building, 6 floors of aging pipes that needed systematic replacement. It was the biggest job I'd taken on, requiring careful scheduling to avoid disrupting patient care. Lisa and I spent a whole Sunday mapping out the building's plumbing system, planning our approach. Marcus would handle our regular maintenance calls while we tackled floors one by one. Monday morning, the building manager met us looking concerned. I got a call from the health department, she said. Anonymous tip about unlicensed contractors working on medical facilities. I showed her my licenses, all current and properly displayed in my truck. The health inspector arrived an hour later, went through everything with a microscope. Found nothing wrong, of course, but we lost half a day of work. The inspector mentioned they'd been getting a lot of false reports lately. Seems like contractors trying to sabotage each other, he said. Waste of everyone's time. Brad's car showed up across from the medical building that afternoon, not even trying to hide anymore, just sitting there watching us work. Lisa noticed him first. Is that? I nodded and kept working. Let him watch. Every pipe we installed was to code, every connection tested, but his presence made everyone nervous. Devin kept glancing over. Marcus double-checked work he'd done perfectly the first time. The psychological warfare was working even when the practical sabotage failed. The fake invoice situation nearly cost me the medical building contract. Someone had sent an invoice on my company letterhead billing for work we hadn't done. Emergency repairs supposedly performed after hours, billed at triple rate. The building manager called me furious. Is this how you operate? Sneaking in extra charges? It took an hour to prove the invoice was fake, comparing it to my real ones, showing the discrepancies in formatting and invoice numbering.